nearly at 20. And yeah, I hope everybody's had a good week. It's been an interesting full-on week for us, Jashon, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been a very interesting week for us.
Yeah, learning lots of new things, making big decisions, all that stuff, all that good stuff that comes along with it. But today we are going to have a conversation about bullying, but not necessarily the conversation people will expect us to have about bullying, right? And what sparked this in me today was I, well, I suppose anyone who follows me on social media will have seen some of my posts today. I was asked to go and speak to about 500 first and second years here in Ireland, so that'd be 13, 14 years of age, students about bullying. And I had my presentation ready to go. And I was lying in my bed last night trying to get to sleep, and I was like, this presentation is shit. It's really, really boring. Like I was lying there going, if I had to listen to me talking about this presentation, I'd be put to sleep. So how could I expect a 500 12 and 13 and 14 year olds to actually find it interesting? So like, right, I need to do something different. But I was so tired. I was like, I'm not getting out of the bed now. So I prayed to uh, old Buddha and said, Buddha, help me remember in the morning, please, because I've got a crap memory. And I did. I remembered the few pointers that I had. So I sat down with about 20 minutes before I had to leave the house to go and give the presentation and read the presentation. And Jay Sean, it went down really well. They didn't stone me. They didn't beat the crap out of me. I actually got an applause.
They didn't bully
That
you? They didn't make
They
fun
didn't
of
bully
you?
me. No.
Oh,
I think I'd made them feel so bad about bullying that there was no way they would. Um, but what prompted it for me today, for us to talk about it, was the the questions and stuff and the conversations that I had with some of the students afterwards. And I suppose two things that I really want to kind of focus on. One, like what is bullying, but what is not bullying? Because there's a lot of things that get called bullying that aren't. But what I really want to delve into, Jay Sean, is how acceptable bullying is in society. Now, loads of people will go, hold on a minute, Alan. There's so many anti-bullying policies. There's so many, this is anti-bullying week in so many schools. Like, bullying's not okay, but it is. And we're going to delve into that and how we, as parents, educators, therapists, anybody working with or who have children, can start to reframe what's acceptable and how to call out things without being over the top. Right. So let me
all right.
kick it off. What is bullying, Jay Sean? Right. Well, I'll ask you. Like, what would you say bullying is if you were to describe it?
If I were to describe bullying, I would say it's pushing your belief or disbelief about a subject or situation or person um, onto another person um, who maybe not necessarily wants to even know what you have to say or care about what you're thinking of or care about the situation. Um, but I don't think bullying is, it has a bad, people think of bullying as being a bad thing. I'm a bully. I bully people all the time. And I don't think bullying is bad. I think it's all in what you're being a bully about, if that makes sense.
Well, explain that a bit more.
Okay.
So, what do you mean
So,
by that?
so bullying. You kind of touched on it in the opening statement. Is it something that's acceptable in society and this and that? So, I'm in the U.S. We have, not to speak politics, but we have a bully in office. So it's very clear to see the negative things a bully can do. From my perspective, so bullying, I have certain beliefs. Let's say I'm in a grocery store, and I see this quite often, especially in the area that I'm in. The area that I'm in, we have a lot of well-off people. And then inside the community, there's a lot of people that are less off. We have a fairly large houseless community as well. And just being in the grocery store, I'll see somebody that I recognize from the street who doesn't have a house or they're low income, and they may be standing at a line, and somebody who's, you can tell, has money, come, they live a better life, dress nicer, might just step right in front of that person and just expect, oh, well, they're homeless. They can wait. To me, that's being a bully. Where I come in and I'm a bully and I'm proud to be a bully, I'll call that person out for what they're doing. Hey, what makes you think you can get in front of that person just because you got more money? You need to step back and get back behind them. Now, that's me being a bully, but in a good way. That's one of the social interactions that I see quite often that I would describe as bullying. Um, then even in if we're talking about schools, last year I helped out a coworker whose son was being bullied at school, so we went back and forth to the school. We ended up going to the state's attorney and going back and forth with them, and the it was a long process. And the bullying in that one was some kids from a higher class, higher society class, thought that it would be okay to pick on a younger kid who obviously comes from a lower class. Wasn't because he wasn't handsome, it wasn't because he wasn't smart, it wasn't for anything but classification. His mom's poor, he's poor, and we're going to pick on him. So I see bullying everywhere I go, and it's not always negative. In fact, most of the time when I see bullying, it is for the positive. If you really think about what being a bully is or bullying, if you watch the news, every single topic they're talking about, there's a bully. And most of the time, there's a bully that's fighting for something good. They're pushing their views, they're pushing their politics, they're pushing their change onto people that might not have the mental stamina to understand it. So that's my roundabout, dragged out way of saying what I think a bully is and what I think a good bully and a bad bully is the difference there.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So, the technical term for a bully or for bullying is repeated intentional behavior that hurts, embarrasses, or excludes someone. And the repeated is the really important piece. So it has to be happening over and over and over again. So to me, what you described is you're not being a bully. You're just stepping in to support somebody who is experiencing an incident that is also technically not bullying, technically. It's just being aggressive, disrespectful, undermining, but it's not technically bullying. And I think that's really important because bullying gets thrown around an awful lot. And like my social media feed is pretty much Liverpool Football Club, Chicago Bears, and puppies and pandas. Right, that's pretty much what my social feed is. Except when the algorithm tries to throw like, let's try and trigger them. Let's get them triggered. So being a man in his 40s, I get lots of, every so often, videos of women in bikinis, young women in bikinis, because obviously that triggers lots of 40-year-old men. I get fights, I get I get a lot of US political stuff as well, which I never engage with. But anyway, but I did get a video pop up recently, and I think it was from the US, where uh, two kids, probably about, I'd say 16, 17 years of age in school, were picking on another kid in the classroom while the class was going on. Now, given the reaction of what happens, I suspect it was probably something that was sustained. But the teacher ran over, boom, boom, knocked out the two bullies off their chairs, picked one up, chucked them out the door, and everyone was cheering and the whole lot. But the problem is that when we see bullying and that's the response, yes, it can stop it in that moment. But the reality is that teacher has probably lost his job. Good chance he's gone to prison for assaulting minors. And it doesn't matter the reason behind it. So then the impact that then could have on his family, the impact that has on the kid that he stepped in for, may be actually quite negative. Because I remember my brother, so he's younger than me, so he was being bullied in school. So what did I do as his older brother? I went and I punched the head off the kids who were bullying him. That's what any older brother would do. But then I left the school. And what did the bullies do? Let's go. There's no big brother here who's going to step up. So it didn't, well, it helped my brother in that moment. In the longer term, what I probably should have been doing is looking at how can I support him to be able to take care of himself in those situations. Now, it's easier said than done, and there's no very clear right and wrong in all of this. But we got to start to look at what bullying is and what it's not, because people will say, like, if you said, Alan, look at the head on you, you baldy, whatever, right? What I hear an awful lot is, oh, he's bullying you, Alan. I'm like, no, he's not. That doesn't give, like, I don't give a shit. It doesn't bother me at all, right?
Like, I know I look like a turtle out of its shell.
Exactly. A very handsome turtle out of its shell, but still a turtle out of its shell, right? But the reality is, unless you're doing it every day and know that it's having an impact on me and you're trying to break me down emotionally and mentally and verbally, that's not bullying. You're just being a dickhead, right? But it's only you being a dickhead if I actually care about it, right?
Well, let me give you some pushback there, because you're
Please
giving
do.
because you're giving a lot of people a pass then. So let's say I'm the so-called bully and I'm in society, so I might not see you every day.
Mm-hmm.
But first time I see you, I dismissive towards you. I'm like, oh, watch out, come on, get out of my way. You look poor. Watch out, I'm going first. In that instance, that's an action that a bully would do to somebody. But it's my first interaction with you. I move on down the road. So right now I'm not a bully, I'm just a jerk because I picked on you. But then I go down the road, I'm in the next establishment and I do it to somebody else. Am I just a jerk again, or is my pattern of behavior is what makes me a bully?
But that's repeated.
But
So it's
not to
not
the same
necessarily,
person.
but not the same person, but it is repeated behavior. And
Correct.
that is
Okay.
bullying. So your behavior is bullying behavior.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm glad you pushed back because that clarification is important. So like if I were to do that, right? And I push in front of somebody because they're homeless, right? And I've never done it before. It's never crossed my mind. Wasn't I wasn't intentionally trying to push them out of the way. I didn't think I'm more superior than them. Maybe I'm just uh, in a rush because I'm double parked and I'm about to get clamped, right? Doesn't make it okay what I've done, but it doesn't mean that I'm a bully. Does that make sense? Because it's not
Yes.
repeated behavior and it's not
Correct.
intentional. So it's important to kind of separate that. But let's kind of delve into the societal side of things, right? So, yes, we could absolutely sit here and talk about politicians, particularly uh, some high profile politicians in the US right now, and maybe some high profile politicians in North Korea and in Russia and in other countries around the place, right? But moving away from them, right, because that's very obvious and very clear. The societal issues I see in relation to bullying is what have been some of the most popular TV shows over the last 20 years. America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, X Factor, all these competitions. And what do we watch it for? We watch it not to see necessarily who's going to be the really good singers. We watch it to see who are the really bad ones who think they're really good. And then everybody has a good laugh at those people. Like, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but I know in the UK one, they had a tour it's probably about 10, 15 years ago now, of the worst singers from X Factor. Right? And it sold out. Like, it absolutely sold out. But that's seen as entertainment. Tearing people down who think they're good at something and destroying them. Gordon Ramsay, one of the most popular TV chefs, if not the most popular TV chef in the world. Literally, people love seeing him tearing into restaurant owners, tearing into staff. It's entertainment. And we've built a societal structure around acceptance of bullying as long as it's not towards me. And added on top of that, what we have is from the moment we're born. So you were born perfect, Jashon. You were absolutely born a perfect little baby. And then the people around you started to influence you. And then the school people around you started to influence you. And then media started to influence you. But advertising also started to influence you. And advertising started to tell you from a very young age, Jashon, you'll be better, you'll be happier, you'll be more accepted if you buy this thing. And then if you buy the newer version of this thing, because the old version, that's no good now. You need the newest one. So we are told from the most impressionable age that we are not good enough and we will only be happy if we buy X, Y, and Z, which then fuels a belief system within us that I am not good enough unless I can buy all the things that will make me good and make me seem good enough, which then creates the level of entitlement you're talking about, where people feel that they are better than somebody else just because of money and they can buy things, and that influences those people to think it's okay for me to put these people down, to be that bully, to actually try and shit on people. And that's one of the things that we have to start to try and look and change. Not that we can change society sitting here having this conversation on a podcast, but by encouraging people to start to look inwards into their own little families and go, what can we do to help our children to understand that bullying behavior is not okay, that disrespecting people based on their nationality, their gender, their race, their financial situation, their employment, actually is not okay, because you are no better or worse than anybody else on this planet. I'm no better or no worse than anybody else. We've got as much value as anybody else has. And it's only through our actions that we show the world whether we actually are good people on this planet or not. So, what's your take on society encouraging
I think it's
bullying?
I think it's perspective. So you mentioned the X Factor, and they did a tour where they took all the worst singers, and it's sold out, and everybody went to go laugh and mock these worst singers. I say perspective. The worst singers agreed to go on this tour. For them to have the courage to be recognized as the worst and to go on stage in front of people that are willing to come see the worst, it's perspective. Is the crowd there to mock, or is the crowd there to laugh and engage and clap? Because with those laughs, there's a round of applause for people who have been labeled as the worst, but have the courage to get on the stage and still perform and do what they love. So it's a symbiotic relationship in that type of situation. And I think a lot of what we see as bullying comes down to perspective. Is it negative or is it positive? And I think that's where, if there's ever a chance to reframe what bullying is, it's going to have to come down to changing people's perspective. What are you engaging in this for? Are you engaging in it to be negative and to actually demean and to put somebody down, and that's your angle? Or do you think that maybe it's just funny, and granted the person may not be good, they may be embarrassing themselves, and you're laughing and you're making fun of them about it, but maybe that's what the person wants, and that's what the person needs to build their strength. And then I look at somebody like Gordon Ramsay. Quick plug, if you're ever in Vegas, Gordon Ramsay's Burger House at the bot, I believe it's right outside inside of Caesar's Palace, I think. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Gordon. Absolute best 9-inch standing burger you'll ever. Oh my gosh. Every time I go to Vegas, it's my first stop. I have a burger from there, and then I can start my day. Burger with some truffle fries, amazing. Good job, Gordon. All right, back to this. So you look at Gordon Ramsay now, he goes and he's ripping these people, he's just ripping them apart. A lot of these owners, they requested him to come. Well, they all request him to come there. They get beat up. He just craps on them nonstop. But the perspective I see is a person who really cares about somebody else's business, about the industry that they're the top of. Michelin chef Gordon Ramsay, he loves his industry. He sees somebody who's in the industry who wants to be better, who's asked for their help. So what does he got to do? He's got to get them to strip away everything that they know and everything they think they're good about. So you got to stomp it out of them. He's a bully. But from the perspective of the owner, they might not like it at the time, but at the end of it, they realize they needed it. I learned this perspective clearly when I joined the Army. Thousands of kids coming in there, 18, 19 years old, all have their own ideas about the way life is going to be and their future is going to be. And then you have a drill sergeant who's the biggest bully in the world. Don't smile. Put your hands this way. Stand this way. Walk faster. Do this. Always. Just nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. They beat everybody into the ground. Everybody who was on that cattle car with me threw up within 2 hours. That's how bad they beat us day one. And by the end of basic training, those same bullies were the most respected people, and those are the people that like you relied on. So for me, I learned perspective in the military. Are they doing it because they dislike me? Are they doing it because they want to hurt me? At the time, it feels that way. But when you have clear perspective and you step back from the situation, some bullying can be good.
Interesting. So, respect is an interesting thing. especially when it comes to authority figures. And I've had this discussion many times where people will say, well, my parents, they, used to hit me as a kid. And what it did was it taught me respect. I'm like, okay, it taught you respect. Really? So did you get hit once and you learned your respect and never got hit again? They're like, no, got hit all the time. And I'll say, okay, well, imagine now as an adult. So, Jashon, you seem like somebody who can probably take care of himself. You're quite tall, you know. Imagine someone who's 10 foot tall, standing over you, and is about to hit you right now. And you rely on that person for food, water, shelter, everything, love. And you can do nothing about it. You have to just take it. That to me is not respect that you're learning. To me, that is fear. What you're learning is fear. And fear is different to respect. My mum is one of the people I respect most on this planet. And she raised her hand to me once. And she apologized straight away. But she earned my respect not through being physical with me, but by teaching me right and wrong, by living that way, but also by showing me, by walking with me, that this is the way we're going to be. And I think, like, I completely understand when you join the military, you are horses. They have to break you down so that you can compartmentalize, and that, like, you have to be able to withstand anything, because you could be standing next to somebody whose head gets blown off and they don't need you. They can't afford to have you dropping into the fetal position and bursting out in tears. So they need to break you down. But I don't know if that's respect or if it is just a form of getting you to that point. And look, we could have a bigger conversation about having military anyway, you know what I mean? But that's a whole other day. But I do think it's a fine line, and it's not an easy balance between respect and fear,
And both
and
of
where
the
bullying
options
comes
I
in.
gave you, and both the options I gave you are both situations where the person being bullied would have volunteered and signed up for it. This
Yes,
isn't
but
something that, yeah, this isn't something that was not requested and something they didn't put themselves into. Whereas in
yeah,
society, oftentimes you didn't ask for it, you didn't sign up
yes,
for it.
I agree with you. But you, I'm going to hazard a guess. Your experience of being in the military versus what you thought your experience was going to be in the military were different.
Yes.
Absolutely. So these people signing up to Gordon Ramsay's TV show, they probably expected a bit of his shit, but not as much as they actually got. And going back to these people on the X Factor, that the only way that's a symbiotic relationship is they're getting paid for it. So they are putting themselves up to be ridiculed in order for financial reward. But another element of bullying behavior is it's where there's a power imbalance, right? So the people running X Factor's tour and the company behind it, they're making way, way more money than the people from that tour. So the people on the tour are getting a pittance relative. Now, it's probably big money for them, but it's a pittance relative to what the company owners are getting. The same with the restaurateurs. I'm sure Gordon Ramsay's making way more money from those TV shows. And this is not about Gordon Ramsay, but I'm sure he's making way more from those TV shows than the restaurateurs do. So there is a power imbalance. The exact same with the military, there is a power imbalance. And maybe we need to have that imbalance. I don't know. Like, again, I'm not saying things are right or wrong. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, with the power imbalance, that's so let's break it down even just to a normal job. Like, I go into companies and I try to get them to change the culture that they operate from, where normally it's a top down, and people will say, like, the shit rolls down the hill. So if you're the what's technically the lowest rung of the ladder, you're going to get most of the shit passed down towards you. So what I try to do is make it more of a horizontal line or a horizontal flow where the owners actually look at themselves and go, right, it's my job to try and support the employees to be the best employees without beating them with a stick and without being overly uh, kind to them by giving them loads and loads and loads of money. It's not that, but to try and find that, right, what can I do to help you be better at your job? But that's not the way traditionally businesses have been set up. It's been a boss going, Jashon, why are you not doing that work? If you don't get that work done, you are fired. That's not respect. That's fear all of a sudden. So you go into the fight or flight response of, oh shit, like I can't afford to lose my job. I've got my rent. I've got my family. I've got, college bills. I've everything. So I go into fear and I'll get the job done, but I'm living in a stressed state, which is not good for my long term health, never mind my mental health. So, if we can, and I've seen businesses literally turn around and be very, very successful by having a more of a horizontal view where it's the owners going, what can we do to help you be better as employees? And some employees will go, give me more money. But I'll always say to employees, if you get more money, that more money will only be fine for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then if you don't like your job anyway, you're going to go back to hating your job, right? You'll have employees who will take the piss and will put the feet up, and then you have to let them go. And that's okay. That's part of the role as a business owner. And then when we bring this back to children, why does bullying keep happening? Well, because that's what's encouraged within the society that we have. So let's bin society is basically what I'm saying, Jason.
Yeah. Well, I can't say it's definitely getting better. The I hate this word. I hate this word. The woke, the wokeness. God, I hate that freaking word. Um, I I I think with media these days, social media, network media, um, with the internet, with information and um, things being able to be delivered to us so fast by so many different people. I think it has kind of it's made them it gosh, I can't get the words. It has made the masses more aware that there is at least an issue out there. There's not one person that you can stop on the street and ask them who wouldn't know that there is a big societal issue with classism, and things of that nature, whether it's with the LGBTQ community or um, Hispanics or blacks or whatever diversities are around. And this is globally. I think every individual knows that it's talked about more. It's in the media. It's being discussed. So you'll find more schools these days leaning into that and starting to try to address some of these concerns, and even students um, younger students, high school, junior high. They're on TikTok, and they're seeing a lot of their peers on TikTok doing the social experiments where they're out there, instead of picking on the homeless, they're out there helping the homeless. And they're getting clicks by doing that, by doing good. So I've seen kids in my community stop other bullies and be like, hey, what are you doing? Get out of here. Come on, you come with us and come hang out with us, because they're more social aware. When I was younger, when you were younger, no one talked about it. It was okay to bully the gays or bully the blacks or bully the poor kids. It was okay. And even the parents were like, it's not affecting my home. And I've got my kid going to this private school, so they'll learn to be like me. They've got a brand new $30,000 BMW and they're sophomore in high school, and they can be whoever. Yeah. So I think because society, social media, general network television has made such a big point about it, that if you're running around this world and you're not conscious of it and you're still behaving the way you are, then you got your own personal issues, because it's out there enough to where you should be able to know how to spot a bully and how to do the right thing, which I think is a good thing. And when it comes to the schools, what I'm finding, and I'll put this school on blast, Astoria Middle School in Clatsop County, Oregon, as example, you got to really look at the principals of these schools and the superintendents and how they're handling and what they're mandating. This particular individual tried to use loopholes in order to not hold their staff accountable for identifying and putting a stop to bullying. So in the verbiage that they use in their anti-bullying policies, and this will be for the US, Ireland, UK, any country you go to that has an anti-bullying policy, there's one line in there that you can tell if the school is serious or if they're not serious. And that's going to be something that's directed at the teachers. When you see or witness bullying, you are encouraged to intervene and report it. If you see that line, your school doesn't care. You need to talk to your superintendent and you need to say, hey, why is this in here? What you should see is, if you see bullying or witness bullying, you are required. It's a requirement. It's not a suggestion. It's not you should. You're required to. Whether it's your favorite student, whether you think it's not, that doesn't meet the level. If you see it, you're required to. You let the superintendent make the decision from that point. You just report, do what you got to do. But for this particular district, they had you're encouraged. And I fought that and I fought that. And there's certain policies that should be publicly accessible to all parents. You can ask your school districts for these policies. Read these policies, make sure they're in alignment with your beliefs. And if they're not, write a letter, show up at your student council, your board of education meetings, submit your letters, submit your 3-minute talk about it, and start implementing the change at the head of the snake, at the superintendent. Because if you get them to focus on it, it'll trickle down. It's hard for educators. It's even hard for students to make change if your superintendent doesn't have a clear understanding of the difference of encouraged and required. And that's been the biggest determining factor of deciding whether a school is on point or not on point, by finding that simple sentence in their bullying policies.
Absolutely, because every adult has a duty of care to ensure the welfare of a child, whether they're your child or not your child.
Yep.
So we all have a duty of care. So even if you and I are walking in the street and we see someone beating up or hitting their child, we have a duty of responsibility to at least report what we've seen. Maybe not intervene. Now, some people will intervene, but some people won't. But to actually report what we've seen. So it's something that a lot of people don't know, something that a lot of people won't actually follow through on, but it is something that every adult has a duty of care to the child, especially those who are mandated, who would be people who live in schools. And it can be scary, nerve-wracking, like for teachers. Teachers can worry about repercussions occurring. Like if I report little Johnny for beating up little Joey, was little Johnny going to go and knife my tires? Is little Johnny going to knife me? So, like, people can be intimidated. Adults can be intimidated by young people. And I do think it is something that we need to be conscious of and something worth looking into when people are choosing schools. Now, most people won't because there's so many documents to read, and some, especially in Ireland now, because there's so few actual school places that parents are just happy to get their kids into a school, unless they've got tons and tons of cash. But I think it is something that we all need to be made aware of, and that includes bullying behaviour. But you don't have to step in either if you're
Yep.
putting yourself or the child in danger.
Well, in the school setting, if you're an educator and you're going to take that job and that's a field you want to be in, you need to be ready for that uncomfortable reporting, because there could be the circumstances where you're scared of what little Billy might do if you report him for being a bully, but the risk of what can happen if you don't report the bully, it's just year after year after year, there's just a long number, too high of a number of kids who took their own life because they were being bullied. And that bully continued because, not saying all the time, in a lot of the cases, teachers didn't intervene. Teachers let it go. They didn't feel like it was a requirement. They felt like it was an option. So, as scary as it might be to possibly face some repercussion, you're an adult. You chose to be in this position. You are required, and it's your duty to protect the children. And if you're in that type of setting, um, and you find it difficult, you all teachers have another educator who's a friend in the school. You can always converse and workshop a way to bring it up, but it needs to be brought up and it can't be ignored. Even just imagine you ignore it one time, and maybe it's the first time you've seen it and you ignored it. Well, what if it's happened in two other classes that have been ignored for the last 3 months? Your intervention might could have stopped what could have happened that evening when the kid got home and was just finally fed up with it, because in your mind it's the first time you've seen it, but you don't know the history of the other classrooms and what's gone on outside of school. So yeah, I'm pretty passionate about and pretty hard on educators. I'm pretty hard on the school system. I know it's hard to be an educator. It's hard to do a lot of things. But when you choose this path, knowing you're not going to make a lot of money, so you're doing it because you care. If you care, care all the way. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Let me give you some stats, Jashon, that I gave today to the young people. Almost 30% of students reported being bullied in the last 2 months in Ireland. So I gave a talk to 500 students today. So three, no, I'm terrible at maths. 150 of those students are likely to have experienced bullying within the last 2 months. Like, that's a huge amount of young people. Victims of bullying are more likely to report anxiety, increased depression, self-harm, and have suicidal ideation. It's not really surprising. Irish children have one of the highest rates of cyberbullying in Europe. One of the groups I worked with cheered at that just because they're top of the league table. Then when I gave them the next one, whew, tumbleweed. Irish adolescents who've been bullied were 6.6 times more likely to have attempted suicide.
Dang.
6.6 times. Like, and what I spoke to the young people about today was that's just not one person gone. That's a family devastated. It's a community devastated. It's a school devastated. And what does everybody do? Everybody goes, says, oh my God, that's so shocking. That poor person, what were they going through that brought them to this? I wish we could have intervened before it got to this point. But the ignoring of bullying could have impacted on it. The sharing of photographs or videos of that person, the the walking around them because they're the weirdo in the corner, when all they might have needed was just someone to go and go hi. You don't have to be best friends. You don't have to turn around and reject your friend group, but just going and saying hi and having that. Now, and it's easier said than done, right? But having that self belief that you go, I don't care if my friends take the piss out of me for going and talking to the weirdo in the corner. I'm just going to go over and say hello. That impact of that might be so huge on that individual that that could be the difference between saving a life and not. And not that that is a child's responsibility. And I was saying that, like, none of us are responsible for anybody else. All we can do is be responsible for ourselves. But we never know the power of the things that we do and the impact that they have on other people because we may not hear about it. But sometimes our intervention of kindness, of support, being responsive to someone's needs, might just be the thing that makes the difference for them. So if you're seeing somebody getting bullied and you literally just go and stand beside them, you don't even have to say anything. Just standing beside them might give them the strength to stand up for themselves or might make the other people back down. That can be powerful. So as parents, not that we want our kids getting stuck in the middle of every single bit of bullying that's going on, but just starting to notice and understand the impact. And this is why I wanted to talk about the society side of things. Because if we accept bullying behavior in society, then it makes it easier to ignore it when we're seeing it in broad daylight in front of us.
Absolutely. And we have we have a very singular problem in the United States that most countries don't have. And it's a clear example of how not standing next to somebody or speaking up for somebody um, can go terribly wrong. We have a horrible problem of school shootings, mass shootings. And the one thing you hear after all of these things is everyone thought there was something weird about the person. Everyone thought this about the person. Oh, you should have known this. You should have known that. But in all of that, if anybody, all these people in hindsight who say all these things, oh yeah, you could have seen this. You should. He's weird. We would have known he's this type of person. If any one of those people who had seen those signs would have intervened, not intervened like stop what's happening, but like just before those horrible incidents happen, had tried to be a friend or try to stand with that person. Um, a lot of these school shootings and mass things we got going on here and the hate crimes would be avoided. But it's when you don't say something, when you allow it to happen around you, the next person might do the same and the next person might do the same. And it's just a vicious cycle until one person stops and does the right thing. It takes one person literally to stop the cycle.
Yeah. And that's the power. And
Yeah.
we're led to believe that we don't have that power individually. But all we got to do is just look at the world around us, as in the little small world around us, our school, our
Yeah.
work, our friend group, our family, and go, okay, maybe just being an ear, maybe just being that person to talk to somebody could be really, really impactful and powerful. And we just never know.
Kind of if you imagine a school on a train, the whole school's on the train. All your educators, all of your students are all on a train, and that's your class. And you're on this train. But then some bully parks their car on the train. If somebody doesn't talk to this person, help this person, talk to the bully or prevent this bully, now your trains come to a whole stop. The whole school comes to a stop because no one took care of this one situation. Nobody stopped to care about this one bully that's on the train tracks. So it doesn't stop just you, it stops the whole ecosystem. All the students, all the educators, everyone on that train comes to a halt because no one on the train took the time to intervene. Just got to intervene. Be that one
Yeah, if you can,
if you can.
if you can. And that's all any of us can do.
And there's always
Jashon.
strengths in numbers too. Get your friends, bring your friends with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing more than I'd like to see flipping through YouTube where you see somebody being bullied and then one kid goes, grabs their mother grabs a couple kids, and before you know it, you got 20 people standing around that don't know each other and they're all supporting the bully, and then the bad guy's like, okay, well, I'm an asshole. So you don't have to do it yourself. There's always people around willing to step in.
Yeah. Thanks for indulging me today, Jay Sean, and joining me in the conversation about bullying. I hope the listeners, you guys found it useful. And yeah, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week, as always, getting closer to that 20. And yeah, please do like, share, give us a rating, give us a review. It makes a massive difference. Thank you very much. And yeah, go and share our shorts because they seem to be doing quite well. All right, till next time, Jay Sean, have a good week. Look after yourself, and we will see you guys next week.
FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast. Mind unlocked. With every episode we cast real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky.